So I'm back again with another fantastic author talk. This time I have S.K. Neilson, who's just released her debut novel, Singing Down the Sky. I actually have a bit of a connection with S.K. She's a fantastic Australian new writer, and she's also part of did Fiona McIntosh's masterclass, and we met at NashCon a couple of years ago. I can't even remember what year it was now, and we sat on the same table. So SK, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Aaron. I'm good, thanks. How are you going?
Yeah, very good. So tell us, Singing Down the Sky. It's only just released. How long has it been out and about in the wild?
So it was released on the 30th of September. The print copies have just come through into Australia. There was a little bit of a delay with them coming over, thanks to shipping and stuff like that, but they have hit the warehouse and I believe they're being released out to the bookstores this week. So it is available internationally and through all the main booksellers in Australia as well, like Amazon. Apple, it's available in ebook and print as well.
Yeah. So tell us about Singing Down the Sky. Tell us about this um secondary world magic, or low magic fantasy that you've got.
Sure. So, Singing Down the Sky is a story about a mercenary who owes money to his old crew, and if he doesn't pay them back, they're going to kill his brother. And as part of his plan to get money to pay them back, he enters into a marriage of convenience with a foreign matriarch who is hiding the fateful legacy of her blood silver tattoo.
Um, that's awesome. So when you think mercenary, what are we talking about? Um,
So he comes from a world. So part of the story is about how they come from these sort of two very different worlds and they're thrown in together. So his world is a very dry, like a dry country, an island country that's run by a bit of a dictator, so a warlord. It's a pretty hard life, sort of scratching out a living. He was part of he was a soldier for this mercenary, sorry, for this warlord, and then he's gone off as a mercenary. So, earning money by basically hunting people down. And he's a gambler, so he's got debts that he needs to pay off to his old crew. So they're kind of now he's the hunted essentially, and they've captured his brother as a ransom to get their money back.
yeah. So what inspired this sort of story? Like, I think sort of grim company, but that's in the name. It's sort of that dark sort of fantasy, that grim dark, and or black company. When I think mercenaries, that's where my brain goes. But yeah, what inspired this story for you?
Sure. So it's and I should say it's not a grimdark book, although I was reading a lot of Joe Abercrombie when I wrote it, which
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite authors, but it's not grimdark. So I think the original concept was the around the marriage of convenience, and I was kind of thinking about the mail order brides and flipping that concept and the so it mainly came out of the concept of what if I had a really intelligent and reasonably well-off young woman who needed to buy herself a husband for some reason, and why would she buy a husband? And then I thought, like, he's got to be the polar opposite of that. So he's Eulo, my main male character. He's inspired a bit by the Australian larrikin kind of, Crocodile Dundee, Crocodile Hunter, sort of that sort of concept. And so yeah, I wanted to have my polar opposites and play on that Australian stereotype. But then I thought, why would a really smart, moderately successful woman marry a guy like that? And so I had to then think about her. So Tali, who's my main female character, she comes from a matriarchal society, and it's I looked at flipping a lot of tropes on their head. I didn't want to have the typical stereotypes of male and traditional male and female roles. And so in her country, it's the woman who's sort of the head of the family, and she is leading her family estate. Her mother's left, walked out on the family, and her sister's very difficult, bit of a dysfunctional family, and they're wanting her to go off and get married to some other bloke to try and secure their estate. And she's not really interested. So she's looking at a way to kind of still keep her estate and look after her family, but not in the way that they want her to do it. And yeah, so she ends up over in this foreign country where she sells weapons. So that's sort of her side gig. And there's like an organized husband, I guess, like a husband buying arrangement. So there's all these blokes in Eulo's country that are looking for a better life and looking to get out of this, sort of military dictatorship.
It's it's such a brilliant concept. I love that when when you can flip the tropes. I know with my writing, for a different reason, I kept a lot of the tropes because I wanted to explore a different way to look at them. But I love it when someone just takes them and just like, well, bugger that, and just throws them out the window. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think for me, it was really important. Like, I did not want the damsel in distress. I wanted to have really strong female characters with agency. But likewise with her, with Charlie's matriarchal society, I didn't want it to be a dictatorship either. I wanted it to be a reasonably democratic sort of country. So it's not like men are oppressed in her world. They do have a role. They are advisors in the political system, but they're not seen to be as important as the women in her society, which is where most of the story takes place.
Yeah. So, how long have you been working on this? This is, one as writers, we can spend decades really, some, but how long have you been working on this novel?
So this story I started writing in, I think it was 2014, and I had a little baby at the time, and so that I guess that impacted how I had, how quickly it took me to get the story finished. And then so it took a few years to get it written, go through some beta reading, and get a polished manuscript ready. And when I was ready to start pitching it, because as you'd be aware, obviously in Australia, a lot of the publishers don't have that interest in fantasy. The big publishers tend to leave it to their arms of their publishing companies overseas to look for fiction and speculative fiction and fantasy science fiction. And so there wasn't really the market for it here. So I started pitching it overseas and to get in the door with the publishers overseas, like in the US and the UK. It's really difficult to do. You do need to go through an agent, but finding an agent who's willing to pick you up is really, really difficult as well. So but that was the path that I took. I started looking at pitching at agents overseas, but my timing, I was doing that during COVID when every man and their dog was writing and looking to sell stories. So the agents were absolutely inundated with pitches, and it was really competitive at the time, and that didn't quite pan out for me. Um, then and then I guess the next opportunity I had was at NatCon with Fiona McIntosh, which you mentioned before, which was in 2023, I think. Yeah.
It feels like so long ago, but yeah, not that long ago. It's,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
my life's been a whirlwind since that time. But so for those my overseas viewers, Fiona McIntosh, which you might know, um, is a brilliant writer, very very prominent in Australia, but she's also done fantasy in her early works, then moved on to historical, and then now she's dabbling in her crime, and she's sold around the world. But in Australia, she's one of the gods of writing, and she held a masterclass, which I did mine in 17. What year did you do yours?
Mine, I think, was spring 2014.
Yeah,
So this 2014, yeah. So this book, I was only just starting to write it, I think, when I did my masterclass.
yeah. And so she runs these master classes every year, and then she's done two national conferences for all her master classes, and a lot of amazing people like SK have basically this. It's opened up the doors into the publishing world. We don't need to name too many here, but there's some great ones in Australia that have gotten published out of this. And yeah, at the second national conference is where we met. I don't think we met at the first one. We might have, but
I
I
can't
don't know.
remember.
There was a lot of people. I think the
Yeah,
first one had a bit
yeah,
over 200, and I think the
I
second
think
one they
so.
scaled it back
Yeah.
uh, a bit. So, but it was still over 100. And yeah, we sat on the table, and I remember you talking about your pitch, and you were getting ready to go, and you were a bit blasé, a bit, oh, it's going to be what it is or whatever. I had a distinct, and I was like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to smash it. I remember thinking that, and yeah, and did
Yeah,
absolutely did.
yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we at NatCon we had the opportunity to pitch to Jerry Huntman, who is the editor for IFWG Publishing, which is an Australian publishing house. They do a lot of their market is actually over particularly in the US, but Jerry is one of the very few publishers that's interested in speculative fiction, and so. Like obviously you Aaron are speculative fiction background as well, and so I think that was part of why Fiona. There is a group of us in Fiona's students from the master classes who write science fiction and fantasy, and that was why I think Fiona had brought Jerry in, and so we had the opportunity to pitch our work to Jerry, and we were at the Adelaide Zoo where this particular NatCon was held, and I kind of went into the room and was all nervous, with my pitch ready to go, and I was there halfway through the pitch, and then out of the corner of my eye, right outside the window, like literally right outside the window, was this giant panda kind of lounging in a tree. We're on I think the first story of the building, and so I was kind of, yeah, halfway through, and it really distracted me from what I was doing. But I take it that it was quite an auspicious sign because I did get an offer for my story, and by the end of that year, I'd signed the contract to have Singing Down the Sky published with IFWG, which was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, that's pretty. I remember I couldn't remember who had the panda story, but I do remember the panda story while pitching, and yeah, that's what sort of Fiona and the masterclass, it gets Australian writers in front of publishers, and that's what she does, and for people like yourself, it's 100% paid off. And that's what you touched on before, is the Australia doesn't touch it. We're starting to get a few small ones having a dabble now because they've realised, well, we've been importing it in. We read it, but if you wanted to do fantasy in Australia, and there's some amazing fantasy writers, but they all went overseas, and yeah, so Jerry does. Um, and I can never remember the publishing house. IFWG, is it?
Correct. Yes.
Every time I try and tell somebody about that, I can never remember what it is. I know it's got an IF in it, but yeah. So he does um, publish around in America. He's got a big American base, but he began here in Australia. So he's giving people like yourself a real crack at it. But
Yeah, that's
also
right.
comic book
Mm.
and horror is sort of seems to be more his bread and butter than the fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like? Like, so by the end of the year, you signed the contract. Go through that, like, because a lot of my guys I've had here, I've had one major published, and I've got
Mhm.
a like I'll drop a spoiler alert, although this might go after that one. I can't remember how I've scheduled these to drop, but I have a big name coming in my things, or she might have already
Excellent.
dropped. But yeah, so so a lot of my guys are indie, which I love talking indie. I love talking to anybody about books and writing. So explain that after the after you sign the contract, sort of what then happens and where you go from there.
Sure. So when I signed the contract, I was given a estimated date for publication, which was so I think it was about 18, 20 months away from having signed the contract. So obviously with the publishing houses, they schedule their releases depending on what other work they've got going on. So last year was all pretty quiet. And then earlier this year, I got my edits came through from the editor, and so I worked through with those to just to get the manuscript to polish the edges of it ready to publish. And then the cover design was done. And I know with a lot of the big publishers, I believe that you don't get to have too much say in the cover, but IFWG were really fantastic and let me have input into what I thought the cover may look like. And that was pretty cool. And then we did have some slight delays. So I think mine was pushed back. It might have only been like a month. I think from the original publication date was August, and then it came out at the end of September. So so I guess between signing the contract and the actual release, it was last year was pretty quiet. And now it sort of feels like it's all come up and happened really quickly with it being released.
So is it a good thing? Like once you've signed you and you sort of got that rough date, is it a it's come here now, I want it now, or is it does it sit in the back of your mind? Are you nervous, waiting? What's that
Yeah,
feeling like?
I think it was just really in the back of my mind because it felt like, oh, it's still a way off, it's still a way off. And then this year, when we started getting into the edits and getting ready for the actual publication, it made it a bit more real. And um, so I got the print copies. I saw the print copies for the first time on the weekend. So I was at Supernova in Adelaide, where IFWG and their sister publishing IPI Comics had a stand there. They're at Supernova, I think, pretty much every year. And I was lucky enough to be invited to go, and they had print copies of the book, which was it was the first time I'd seen them, and that really actually seeing the printed book really kind of drove home what I'd achieved with it's sort of been a life I've always written, and it's been a bit of a lifelong goal to publish a book. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's incredible. I remember seeing your first post about, you'd done it basically. This was coming, and I was just so proud. Like, I was just
Thank you.
so happy for you. Another person I know, even though our connection is very small, it's just, to see people achieving dreams you're working for that is the same. It's I don't know, that fills me with heart. I know some people can get a bit envious and a bit thing, but to me that just fills my heart. It's like, oh man, she's done it. All right, I got to keep working. I got to keep going, and yeah, and I was so proud
Yeah.
to see that first post,
Thank
and
you.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things I do really appreciate with our sort of group of Fiona people. I suppose like she's been doing her master classes now for 10 years. So there is quite a big group of people who have done her course and have been able to connect through her master classes. And I've I really appreciate the support that everyone's given me. It's kind of our tribe, isn't it? And I
yeah,
think we're almost a bit of a tribe within the tribe, our speculative fiction authors as well, because we have that common interest. But it's just such a cool group of people, and I find it really motivating to talk to others who have done her course, and we all have that common interest and common goal of getting words on the page. So yeah, it's
yeah.
really cool having that support network.
I think for me, like I'd never actually met a writer till I went and did masterclass. Like, you know, where I work and where I live, I don't even really know readers. So I was just this odd guy that would read on his breaks and things like that, and always had a new book. and then just secretly at home I was just writing, and my now ex-wife knew about it, and maybe three or four other people, and that was it. Like, so yeah, to actually go and meet all these writers was like I think it was 20 in our group. Um,
Mhm.
was just mind-boggling, and then to and
Yeah,
that, like you said, it just then you become part of this little network and this little family, and which
that's
is not
right.
so little anymore. There's yeah, but yeah, and I think that's what writers and creatives in any medium we should be doing more, is celebrating each other's victories, and hence what I'm doing here now and having you on
Yeah,
is
thank you. Thank you.
so back to singing down the sky. Is this a first book? Is it a standalone? What are you doing with this?
Um, it has been published as a standalone, but I am getting pestered by the characters. So, as you know, as a writer too, you kind of have those voices in the back of your head, and the characters haven't gone away. So I don't know. Yeah, we might see more of them in the future. I'll have to see. I have been writing something else. I do have a different work in progress, which is another fantasy. Different world, different characters, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what
Is
happens.
that easy to step out of, to change up characters? Like everyone's a little bit different with this. So yeah, what's your impression?
Yeah, I think so. I think with my writing there are traits that I like my characters to have, particularly the female characters. Like I talked before about having, I like to have female characters with agency. I don't want the damsel in distress. So that's obviously a common theme. Um, but I do try to make them different people in their own right, that you're not just putting the carbon copy of the same characters in different stories. Yeah, yeah,
That's
I do
actually
try and keep them quite separate from each other.
yeah, that's something I struggle with working from one manuscript to another. Like the first one that was a very depressed character and thing, and then the next one he was just this overconfident guy, and I was writing things, and I was like, hang on, that's not this guy, that's that guy, and I really had to pull my mind out of it, and like this is a different story, it's a different thing, and he wouldn't look at it like that.
Mm,
But also unfortunately I identified with the first one and less so with the second one, so it was
right.
easy
Yeah. Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
those thoughts. It's like, no, they're not, you got to really, this is someone different. He's got to be that. And I think that's where in the fantasy world and writing, when you're doing trilogies or things like that, we get a little bit spoiled that we hold these characters for a long time and take them on big journeys, which is part of what I love about reading fantasy, because I'm a bit dyslexic. So when I start a new book and learning the way the writer writes, takes me a bit to sort of get into it. So if you're reading like three or four books in that style with those characters and that, it just gets
Mm,
easier to read for me. And
yeah.
um
Yeah.
and it's something as a writer we sort of get that luxury too, unless you're you've got George R. R. Martin behind your shoulder and you start killing all your
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I when I started reading Game of Thrones, I kept thinking, oh, that's the main character. Oh no, he's dead now. Okay, that one must be the main character. Oh, now he's dead. Took a
Remember when
little
I
while
read
to
it?
get used to it.
Yeah, I remember when I read it, and I'd read Ari Salvador's Drizzt Dark Elf series, and I just kept thinking, I need something a bit more gritty. I need something a bit more hard edge. Like all right, these epic battle scenes that he does are brilliant, but it's just like they're just all nameless orcs and things like that. And then I read
Mm.
Game of Thrones, like I think I'm regretting this decision.
Oh,
So careful what you
yeah.
wish for.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of the things I liked about the book, but I think you really want that character, that main character to hang on to. And yeah, you couldn't really hang on to anyone in Game of Thrones. And then I got to a point, about three dead main characters in, where I was like, okay, I just have to just go with it and not hold on to anyone too tight because they might be next. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So with your current work in progress, are we likely to see that sometime soon, or how does that um, what's that look like?
Um, I'm not sure. I've got to finish it, so it's probably I think I'm about 45,000 words in, so I've got to finish getting it down on the page, get it all polished up, and then I'll have a bit of a think about what to do with it next and look at pitching it. Yeah, I'm not contracted to write another book with IFWG, but I'll get it written and then I'll see where we go with it, where I go with it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a little bit interesting. I know some of the majors. It's generally that two book, sometimes three book contract, but
Mm.
not with you. Not is that just an IF thing, or is that a
No, I think it's because Singing Down the Sky was pitched as a standalone, but Jerry certainly does, like they do certainly publish trilogies and series. There are other
yeah
books that they have published and will have coming up as well that will be in trilogies. But it was, yeah, this one was just a standalone, so that was how it was sold.
yeah?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it always meant to be a standalone?
I did start writing a second part to it. I didn't get very far in, maybe 20, 30,000 words in, and then I had to put it aside. It just wasn't quite working. And I actually picked that draft up the other day and I thought, no, it's just terrible. But it was so long ago too that I started writing it that the final version of Singing Down the Sky, there's some changes that have happened, which mean that this next draft of what could be a second book, it just doesn't flow anymore anyway.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah. I'll
that's
see.
one of the
I like the characters, and yeah, they are still bugging me in the back of my mind. So they might, yeah, we might see them again.
oh, that's good. That's good. But that's yeah, one of the joys of writing, isn't it? That when you do, your original first draft or whatever, they often can change so much your story and yeah. So that by publication dates and things like that, if you've gone on and
That's
written your
right.
next one, uh, someone else talked about that. Um, I can't even think. Someone major talked about that
Mhm.
you know written the first one, then you do your bit of editing, and effectively write your next one. And then by the time publication, they had to change so much for the story, for the structure. And then pretty much over half the next manuscript, which they're thinking they got a whole nice manuscript, was just
Oh,
null and void because they changed it so much from there to there.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, that's yeah, an interesting sort of thing that happens with writing and yeah, when you're writing in series.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, you've got all those threads to keep track of, and I don't know, maybe for writers that plan, I don't know if that's easier, but I don't. I am what Fiona calls a gunslinger or a pantser. I don't plan. Which is weird because I do very much in my normal, like in my day-to-day life. I like to plan and know what's coming up and feel like I'm in control of things. But when I write, I find it just really stifles my creativity and I get bored. So I don't plan. I have a vague gist of where things are going and then just sort of see where the story goes a little bit. So, but yeah, I guess when you're writing series, you need to be able to know where all your threads are and the story threads and be able to pick them up and what your characters are up to. So,
Did you
a
try
bit of a
like
challenge.
did you try tracking them afterwards? Like um after you like got the manuscript and that and then try, oh this character did this or I tried
No,
that.
I do have character. So what I do is I have like a character profile and also a bit of world building stuff written down just to help me keep tabs on like what color eyes does someone have? What's their horse called? What's their brother or their sister or their parent called? How are they related? And just things like their motivations. So what motivates them and what are their flaws? What are their strengths? I do have character profiles like that
Yeah.
just to help me keep all of that information where I can refer to it again. But yeah, no, I don't really have any kind of plan or anything like that written down at
Yeah.
all.
But I had when I first started writing, because when I don't know if for you, but for me it was just slow. It was very slow. Like to do 50 words was okay. That's when I first started writing. And so I thought, so I did the plot and just a bunch of steps, and I started going off that, and then pretty much that just went very quickly. It just disappeared, and I
Yeah.
just sort of went through it. And then I was getting to points, and I'd like have to character. What do I call that character? X. Keep writing, and then I'd have to go back and try and find it. But then when I was going back, I'd forget to check. Oh, and write it down.
Yeah.
So a little bit more organization for myself would be good. But I'm in your your boat of the pantser. It's just coming out. It's going to be what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of think of it as a brain vomit on a page. It's not very glamorous, but I just want to get the words down. If I don't know something, or if I'm not sure of a name, or I know something's not well written, then I go, okay, that's fine. I'll put a placeholder in, and then I know that I can come back to it in the next draft and tidy that stuff up. But I find and that's where I think that's really Fiona's influence coming in because before I did any courses with her, I would write something, I'd edit it and muck around with it and get bored with it, and then I'd go, I don't want to write that story anymore. I'm going to write something else. And I did a day years ago. I did a fantasy writing day course with Fiona through the ACT Writers Centre, and she talked about just get the words down, keep writing, don't look back, get that first draft down, and then you can go back. And that was really what for me unlocked actually being able to finish a piece of work. Was just to keep going and not read back over what I'd written the day before, kind of thing. And I write longhand as well. I write with a pen and paper. It just is what works for me. So and I like being able to move around the house and stuff like that with the pen and paper, and then I
Yeah,
type it up
right.
into my next draft. So
I can't write with a pen at all. Like my
right,
chicken
yeah,
scratch handwriting is so terrible, and I think it's a childhood trauma thing in school of having to write. Like, yeah, I don't write anything down and notes anything. I just avoid it if I think someone's gonna thing. But through a keyboard, just my
hmm
brain goes and it just comes out. But that's one
yeah,
of the
cool,
things, isn't it? Everyone's just that little bit different, and.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, I know someone else was at one of the talks was talking about they freehand. That's like wow. But
Yeah, yeah.
so where can we find this wonderful book? So you're on all the major sites, but
Mhm.
paperbacks, are they going to get around? Um,
Yeah, so the print copies are available through Amazon, Booktopia, Angus and Robertson's website. They can be ordered in through Dimmicks as well. So we've got a distributor in Sydney, New South Books, and um, yeah, they can distribute to all the bookstores. Yeah.
yeah, and I always talk about the cons to my friend. Tell us a bit more about the con. Like my American friends that have got a con every other weekend or some sort of book fair. In Australia, we don't quite have that. So tell us about how cool was that to be part of that?
Yeah, so Supernova. So yeah, I think I mentioned I was invited to attend that as part of the IFWG Publishing and IPI Comics stand. So they're big supporters of Supernova, and I think they have a stand there. So Supernova's in all the major cities. I think Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, Sydney. Did I say Sydney? Yeah, so they do have a presence at most of the IFWG do have a presence at most of those. Barbara J. Rosie, who is another one of our Fiona cohort, she has also just had a book published, The Brazen Dragon, with IFWG. So as debut
Be on the
authors, we
channel in a couple of weeks.
yeah, cool. Her book's fantastic. Barb and I were both invited to go along to be on the stand at Supernova here in Adelaide with our new books. Yeah, it was just really cool to be around lots of creative people. There's lots of people that were dressed up for cosplay, so as their favorite characters from anime or um yeah, just different sort of, I guess, pop culture movies. John Jarrett from Wolf Creek is at, I think he tends to be at all the supernovas, so I got to have a chat to him. There were people dressed up as his character from Wolf Creek, which is interesting. I don't like horror really frightens me, and I thought Wolf Creek was a really terrifying movie. It was really creepy. Yeah, interesting that people would like to get dressed up as that character, but there were quite a few people. Yeah, really cool costumes. Just being around lots of creators. So we were kind of down the comic book end. So there was some illustrators and writers who'd come out from Australia who illustrate and write for Marvel, like the Phantom. There was someone there who creates for the Phantom comics, and yeah, it was just really really cool, kind of being around that creative group of people. Yeah, it was really lovely. And the Supernova organizers were really, really cool, really supportive. Yeah, yeah. And they had a lot of good speakers. So they had some of the cast of Charmed, the TV show. They had Billie Piper, who was in Penny Dreadful and Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Her name's escaped me just at the moment, but the lady who did the original voice for Astro Boy was out as well.
Yeah, that one
Yeah,
I'm
lots of cool events on. Yeah.
because yeah, we always get a couple of major celebrities at the con, but I'm always something's up, every time it's in Melbourne or whatever. I always
Yeah. Yeah.
got something planned, or I find it on the weekends like, oh man, I've got to get better at sort of seeing this coming and going to these events. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, the big
I,
bookish thing is Clunes. You got to do Clunes one year,
oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard
which
all about it. It sounds brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, which I've been telling people because they do, but they'll get major writers. Like they had Andy Griffith, the Treehouse
Oh,
one
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
They've had Judy Nunn, Sarah Bailey. I don't think who. Oh, I don't know. They have the big, like some traditionally published, some big recognizable names in Australian, but then they have like all the indies and the small publishers. And when I first started going, yeah, there wasn't a lot of that in the last few years,
Hmm.
particularly in the speculative realms. There's been a big explosion at Clunes, and yeah, so I think you'd do well. You and Barb should travel over one year and
Excellent.
set up, and yeah, I reckon you'd do well.
Yeah, be interested to come and have a look. And I think a bit likewise, Supernova, there was quite a few indie authors there as well, which was really good to see that they're and also in Adelaide, like we do tend to miss out on a lot of big events that go down the East Coast. And I believe that their Supernova event isn't as big as it is in the eastern states and the bigger cities, but it's really nice that they still recognise that there's an audience and creators over here as well. So it's pretty cool that they support South Australia.
That's another thing. Yeah, well, I'm in regional Victoria, so yeah. You say, oh, it's happening in Melbourne. It's like Melbourne's still a fair way away from me. It's
Mm,
it's not an easy, yeah, trick, especially when you got kids. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
yeah know your pain on that one.
yeah.
All right. So is there anything else you want to share about your writing and your work? So
No, I think that's kind of the yeah, we touched on the key points. I guess one thing I didn't maybe mention is that my writing so before we started the interview, we were chatting a bit about fantasy, and I had mentioned that I don't tend to write like the traditional fantasy with the castles and swords, and I love reading it. I've got lots of fantasy on my bookshelf, but I don't write that. I think I really found my voice as a writer looking in my own backyard. So I use a lot of the Australian landscape and I guess outback folklore. I've got a fair bit of Australian language in my book as well. I just really
Yeah.
wanted to bring that flavour through. I did have to tone it down a little bit. The editor said there was a few comments about what does that mean? It was just a little bit too out there, but that's kind of the flavor of my books, I suppose. So they're fantasy, but not traditional fantasy in that sense.
So,
Yeah.
see, that's yeah. It's funny the editor made you tone it down a little bit. 'Cause, I've had an idea if I ever get my first one out there is what you could do with the Australian red desert and in a fantasy world and yeah. So that's I don't know, that sits at the back of the brain somewhere waiting to be looked at, but
Yeah.
I've got to get
Yeah.
my bum into gear on some editing is where I'm at, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Yeah, you should write it. Okay, yeah, don't lose that idea. You've got to write it at some point.
Yeah. But because you imagine what if you take out Australian creatures and what you could do with them if you mythicalize them, like, you know, in that setting.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
potential there. Definitely
Yeah,
potential.
and I haven't like my book doesn't include Australian animals or anything like that in it, but I have written previously about like our um Thylacoleo, I think it's called, which is our one of our Australian marsupial prehistoric lions, and it was a marsupial yeah, like a marsupial creature. And so things like that I think are pretty cool. There's
Yeah.
potential. But I kind of felt like, and I know they talk about with writing, there's the rules and you've got to follow the rules, but then sometimes you've got to break them. And I really felt with the write what you know, I thought, I've traveled a lot around Australia. I've spent a lot of time outside the big cities. I prefer to be outside the big cities, and that's what I want to write about in my books, that sort of environment and the feeling of being out, yeah, out in the yeah, out in the countryside and the outback and stuff. So that's
I,
that's my
I think
thing.
yeah, we're changing the land because it used to be that, especially when you're thinking traditional, they wanted everything in their little boxes. And
Yeah,
now we're starting to
yeah,
see you can actually do a lot more and people are really changing the boundaries and throwing out the tropes with speculative fiction and what you can do and being indie or finding small like you have publishers is fostering that, is encouraging that, and I think that's
that's right.
yeah, well, it's obviously worked for you, which is brilliant, and
Yeah,
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 well, hopefully it'll work for more writers who've got that different idea and see their fantasy worlds in a little bit differently.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think I mean I've spent time in Europe. I've got family in Europe, but it just wasn't just yeah, it wasn't really what I wanted to write about. So yeah,
Yeah,
so my world's a bit flipped upside down. It's kind of a southern hemisphere with yeah, warm climate. The cold areas are down south, and yeah, it's fun. But I love writing it because I love Australia. I love our environment, and the world that we live in down here. So that was something I really wanted to bring into my writing.
yeah, no, that's brilliant. So where do we find SK Neilson? I'm sure we can follow you and track you on all the social media and
Yeah, so my website is skneilson, which is neilson.com. And then I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at SK Neilson. I might have SK Neilson writer in there, but I think SK Neilson. And there's links to all my socials off my website as well.
which will be in the description. I'll drop you a link to your website in the description.
Excellent.
And yeah, thank you very much for joining me on my little podcast and having a chat and sharing your book. And again, congratulations. I'm seriously proud of you. You've no idea when I saw that your first post that I've done this. It's happening.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, I just beamed. I really did it. You know, 'Cause,
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, I
All right.
appreciate the support and thank you for having me. It's been really fun chatting.
No worries. And if, book number two, whatever that is, definitely have you back on here again.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Happy, thank you for SK again, and thank you for watching, guys. Happy reading, subscribe and follow for more.